Hey y'all, welcome back. Today I have more of your own scary stories to read, so get cozy and let's get terrified together. Also, a few things before we get into it. If you have any stories you would like for me to read, I will leave that email in the description below, so just put YouTube in the subject line and we are good to go. Also, I started a Patreon. Over there, we do some really fun stuff. We do intense storytime breakdowns and a bunch of stuff. There's a whole tier breakdown if you go look me up, but it's under Morgshauntings, the same as on here, and that information will be below as well. Please go check it out because we have so much fun over there. But now that that word vomit is out of the way, let's get into these stories. My iPad died, so I have to read them on my laptop. I feel weird not holding it in my hand. I always feel like I'm reading a book. But now I'm just reading off of a screen. I was anyways. I don't know why it feels different. This story happened one night when I let my dog outside at around midnight. He went in the yard and I was standing out on my deck. I call him back and then I whistle once. I get my dog inside and I was curious, so I go back out on my deck and just listen. Then I whistled twice. I hear 2 whistles back. I'm like, dang, something is really whistling at me. So then I whistle 3 times and it whistles 3 times back, but this time it was closer. It's a full moon outside and I have a huge field beside my house. I see something humanoid figure dart across the field fast. It was on all 4s. It's also a field across from that house as well. That's the direction it went. I'm getting ready to go back in my house and I hear something say, "Come here." Needless to say, I got my butt in the house and I will never whistle again. Yep. Don't whistle outside, y'all. Don't get curious. Don't let the curiosity get to you. What do they say happened to the cat when he got too curious? Alright, next story. Where I live is in the country, and it's not too isolated, but it's lots of woods, country roads, and very peaceful. I live on a dead-end road, and this story, however, doesn't occur in my home. So myself and 2 friends go to a place called Clarkton Bridge. It has many haunted stories about the area, and it's very old. It was a bridge for cars, but it got so old that it was closed to vehicle traffic. You can walk across, but it's now completely gone. I've been when the bridge was still there, but this happened after it was destroyed. Myself and my 2 friends, we'll call them J and T, we go after dark. I drive my SUV as close to the bank as possible, and then I leave my car lights on bright so we could see. We're walking around laughing and talking, and then I go quiet. I look across the river on the other side. It's a high cliff. It's nothing but rocks. I'm staring, and I see my shadow. Then all of a sudden, I see 2 more shadows of what look like children on each side. I turn and yell, "T and J, do y'all see this?" They come and stand beside me and look where I'm looking. They see the 2 shadows of the children. And then 2 more shadows appear that are our height, maybe taller. Then I start seeing a whole group. I can see what T and J's shadows are, but now it's a whole group. I look at my friends and say, "This doesn't feel right. We need to get out of here, now." We move, and you can see our shadows move, but the other shadows stay. We get in my SUV and hauled ass. I then say, "You may not follow me, attach to me, or any of my friends. We are protected." When I get back to Jay's house, I say to myself and J and T, I told them, "Y'all wanted to see something scary and you got your wish." They were terrified. I haven't been back. Shadows already sketched me. I don't know why. Like, I understand they're there because science and stuff, but I don't like it. Alright, story number 3. The story gets progressively worse as it goes on. I recently had a few experiences, and maybe sharing them will help me understand what happened. Also, I have to thank you for making content. It's so fun to watch. Thank you. I had my birthday recently and celebrated it with my family out of town, and when I got home, my friend suggested we do something together to celebrate. My friend N suggested we go on a ghost tour. I live in Austin, and there's only one ghost tour. I end up choosing that because it sounded cheesy and fun. For context, I had never had any tangible, as in visual, audible, or physical experiences with the paranormal. I have had cases where I felt extremely uncomfortable in a space and felt like someone was watching me, but never anything other than that. So going on this tour, I was looking much more forward to hanging out with my friends and having a little adventure. Fast forward to the day of the tour, we go into the restaurant that was originally a convenience store built in the 1800s by German immigrants. We learned all of the various ghosts that supposedly live in that building, and because the building was used for so many things, there was a lot of them. Another thing to note is that 2 of my 4 friends, N and E, who went on the tour with me, are very sensitive to this kind of stuff. We ended up on the top floor where the immigrants had built the house lived. We got the rundown of why the room was considered haunted, and the floor consisted of one large room, which was primarily empty, excluding a few plastic tables and chairs. A bar in that same room, it was an underground prohibition bar at that point, and a side room that connected to the main one via 2 separate doors. One of these doors was slightly open. The tour guide continues and talks about her experiences and facts about the building. She then turns to face away from the slightly open door because she didn't like to face it. As she continued to speak, I was now looking directly at that door behind her, and so were all of my friends. The big room was relatively bright, while that smaller room was very dark. At the angle we were facing, we saw nothing but darkness from inside. From that door, a very subtle face appeared, like something was peeking. The longer it looked, the more I was sure it wasn't my eyes playing tricks on me, but I said nothing out of fear that mentioning it would rile it up even further. We did later confirm that other people saw it. In fact, other people saw multiple faces. While that would be enough paranormal for me, it did not end there, in the slightest. She went on to tell us that the 8 children of these immigrants were quarantined in the smaller room on various occasions, and 2 children ended up passing. The last one to pass, Toby, was left alone in that room for 8 months before his passing. He was 4 years old, and the only interactions he had were with his mother when he was given his daily meals. After he passed, the family left. While this story was told, the EMF detector my friend was holding went off multiple times despite being away from anything like electronics or movements. This sparked inspiration for N and E and I to go into the little room. Once we crossed the room and into the smaller one, now being used for storage, I immediately felt the energy change. The room was pitch dark, and once we were all in there, the tour guide shut the door. The REM pod placed in the center of the room, which had not gone off while we were outside, started frantically beeping and lighting up, only stopping if we told it to. We assumed this was Toby, the 4-year-old, who, according to the tour guide, only sparked activity if there was a maternal figure on the tour, which there was not. Her next theory was that because we were children, Toby felt an attachment to us. Or perhaps this wasn't Toby at all. The present theory. Anytime we asked him which direction he was facing or anything involving location, he pointed towards the left corner, using the left corner light on the pod. My friend has Tourette's syndrome, and her only tics pointed towards that corner the whole time we were in the room. In some cases, she said it felt like something was taking advantage of her Tourette's to move her or pull her. After around 15 minutes of talking to Toby, we turned the lights on and continued to speak for some brief time. During this, I felt the urge to record the mirror on the ground beside me, which was propped up on one of the boxes scattered throughout the room. And I did. I saw nothing until a week later when my friend noticed a face in the mirror of the video. And from where it would have been right beside me as I recorded. I was sitting on the ground beside of that box the entire time in the room. I will leave the photo here too. The reason I think this is a face and not something else is because I remember seeing that box multiple times. There was nothing on top or behind in that space between it and the desk. After I took this recording, there was an energy shift in that room. We went back out on the main one, and the lights in the main room sporadically started to flicker whenever the name of Toby or any other spirits we talked about were mentioned. While this happened, another group on the tour entered the small room, where the REM pod did not go off a single time for all 15 minutes. And it was again only us in the room on the main floor. The lights in the small room had been turned off and the door was left slightly open. We sat down in the little circle using chairs. I faced away from the door, but was also the closest to it. We then continued to talk about the history of this room being an underground bar during the 30s. After that, my friend made a noise and said, "The door's opening." I turned around to see the door open all the way, like someone had been pushing it. As it stopped, I saw a shadow run across the small room. Of course, my friends and I ran in there to see 2 figures, both in the corner. One was extremely tall and gaunt and felt malicious. One was short like a toddler, Toby. My friend's Tourette's, which is usually triggered by stress, started acting up, and every time she would tell us something was grabbing her and pretending it was Tourette's. She's had Tourette's for as long as I can remember, and we kind of just stood there in silence, staring at it. The only time anything changed was when E's tics made her sound. At this point, the tour guide who had followed us left. She said the energy was too much for her to handle, and she left us alone in that room. To be honest, I'm surprised she does tours for a living and abandoned us, the people who don't go to locations every day. The energy was sickening, and to be honest, I think the reason we didn't leave the room with her was because we couldn't move. The taller man, who I could not see anymore, was on us. I could feel him. He was around, inside, everywhere. I didn't understand what was happening, and it was so quickly that we pushed ourselves out of the room and somehow before he did anything, like we broke his trance. I'm Christian, and while being one, I have suffered a lot at the hands of the church and its congregation, which made me doubt my faith and time again. But I think this time I was saved. Ever since that night, me and my friends have had a heightened sense of something watching us. It sounds like something was controlling Toby. I hate that. Alright, let's read one more story before I burst into tears. For a little context, I'm a very intuitive person. I would like to tell you about an encounter I had with what I believe was a walker. I live in an area of the USA that is known for these. I've always heard stories about walkers and all sorts of rules, so you don't summon one, but I never took them seriously. When I was younger, can't remember which grade, my mom woke me up before my alarm to let me know that I had forgotten left the backyard door open. I didn't think much of it and brushed it off. My backyard at the time had a trampoline that I liked to go on, sometimes very late in the evening, so I assumed that I had left it open from going on that trampoline last night. But one other thing to note is that I have a small forest in my backyard. There was a small forest range before people started building houses there. The builders were too lazy to cut down the whole forest, so me and my neighbor at the time had a chunk of woods in our backyard. After my mom woke up, I couldn't go back to sleep and something just felt wrong. I slept in a high-rise bed and my dog was a small terrier breed. My dog would often scratch the side of my bed to let me know she wanted to be in bed. That morning, my dog was scratching on the side of my bed, but that feeling I had that something felt off got worse. I turned my head towards my dog. When I looked over, I saw something standing next to her. It was about the size of a golden retriever. It was one of the freakiest things I've ever seen. It had a pale body with gray-white skin and it had 2 pairs of human arms that were put into spider-like positions. It had dark eyes reminding me of a deer and antlers on its head. It was looking at me while smiling. I brushed it off again and thought it was just my brain playing tricks on me, but that's when I started to go downhill. I still didn't sleep. I decided to go ahead and get ready for school early, but no matter where I walked, I could swear someone was walking behind me, even when I was going down the stairs. I would stop every 2 steps, and every time I would stop, I could hear footsteps behind me. It was not echoey. But when I got into my classroom, I could see my whole class staring out of the window at a crow. Honestly, seeing a crow bird in the window made me feel horrified. I thought that this thing was a walker, and one thing I knew about walkers is that they could go turn into animals. During class, I could swear that crow was staring at me. Along with all that, I had horrible luck that morning. I was dropping everything that was in my hands, tripping. I ignored it out of coincidence. But when I talk to my friends, I tell them about what's going on. The moment before I was going to say walker, something knocked over my chair that I was sitting on. It wasn't that I just fell out of the chair. The chair actually knocked over with me in it. I wasn't leaning or doing anything. My friend that's usually a skeptic with these things fully believes that this thing was after me. And one thing that happened after this is that the teacher came over to help me with something afterwards and started dropping things, which made me believe that this thing was following me to begin to cling to my teacher. The crow was now watching the classroom I was in. I never had an experience like that again. I believe that when I left the backyard door unlocked, I accidentally let that thing into my house and it became attached. After that experience, I can never look at the forest the same way. I'm gonna end it on that note, and I'm just gonna try to go to bed with all my lights on. Well, I will see you guys tomorrow, maybe. Bye.